no matter what has kept me grounded is being able to pivot in the midst of the storm
Mm,
for a greater purpose. It's bigger than me and this whole journey. And so for anyone that is like literally probably feeling like you're going through the wilderness right now,
yeah. Yeah.
know that if you can just tune in just a little bit to the word pivot, you think about pivot. When you're pivoting, you're turning direction. Think I want to go. What is my new North Star? Because life has happened to me. My North Star may have pivoted a bit. So, how do I shift that and redefine the focus that allows me to not get lost in what is happening to me?
Welcome to Livin the Rhythm. I'm your host, Pam Reyes, and this show is all about helping you discover the rhythm of life that's unique to you. Because when you align what you do with who you are, something really powerful happens. You begin living with more freedom, confidence, and joy. And that, my friends, is your personal power. We explore mindsets, communication, and purposeful living. We'll have practical tools and honest conversations based on our own experiences, all to help you transform your life from the inside out. Because the grind, that's a lie. You're not going to find your rhythm in the hustle. It's going to be from who you are uniquely created to be. Now, today, my guest, I'm super excited to introduce you to. She's a powerhouse in herself. We met probably about 4 years ago, so I'm going to be really interested to kind of connect the dots on when all of this was happening. But Erica Shoemate is a tech policy strategist, a maternal health advocate, and former national security leader turned purpose-driven voice for change. From national security at the FBI and U.S. intelligence community to shaping global strategy at Twitter and Amazon, Erica has been at the forefront of some of the most pivotal moments in tech and national security. But her most profound pivot came from deeply personal chapter, navigating a high-risk pregnancy, a rare diagnosis of her daughter that led to 118 days in the NICU, and open heart surgery at just 16 months old. That journey, needless to say, reshaped how Erica lives and fights for what matters. Now, as a keynote speaker, AI policy fellow, and founder of E& Strategy Group, Erica helps women in high-tech careers pivot from burnout to purpose without sacrificing boundaries or their brilliance. She champions maternal health equity, mental wellness for Black women, and people first systems in places of power. She brings Olivia Pope energy, sharp, steady, and unafraid to challenge the status quo. Welcome, Erica. I'm so excited to have you on. And I am so excited to be talking about purpose in the pivot, finding meaning when life changes direction. Holy smokes. All I have to say is you have certainly had some significant pivots that would bring anybody to their knees. Share a bit about the greatest challenge.
Yeah. So I would say, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm
Mm.
super excited to be here. And I would say my greatest challenge to date that I would say in recent history would be the pregnancy and motherhood journey of one's life. And mine's around my daughter. And because of her, my purpose has been completely redirected. Share with your audience. I was a person that was, type A, had a plan for the plan. And quite frankly, I never really considered myself to want motherhood for myself. I had a lot of nieces and nephews,
Mm-hmm.
and that was enough for me as someone who is a first generation college grad from inner city Memphis. And I just felt the weight of like being responsible for someone else. That's
Mm.
my own, quite frankly, financial trauma. And now having a daughter, I could not imagine my life
Mm.
without her any different. Although the biggest challenge, and for your audience, life started being pregnant, surprise. Oh my gosh, I went from like 3 weeks before I even found out I was pregnant. No, I don't have time. I'm busy. I got all stuff to do. And I again being type A though, I was doing my yearly women's health checkup. I had just come back from an assignment overseas. I had internationally deployed, still in public service. And so I had spent a few months overseas and coming back, getting resettled. And I know for a fact I was not pregnant January 2017 because I had gone to the doctor and did all the things. And so my doctor wanted to send me to a fertility specialist. Again, I still was like, I don't think I want to be a parent, but just in case. And so I go to fertility specialist, and that's in February. So I said January 2017, literally January 2nd. No, I wasn't pregnant. February, I go to the fertility specialist, and they're like, okay, we're going to run some additional tests, and all these things are going to be set up. So a week later, I was supposed to go back. And before I could even go back, I found out I was pregnant. Yeah. So, but it's so funny, like, even thinking about my story and journey of like the greatest challenge, there's still a lot of humor that happened along the way. Like, because I am the joke of my family, having a kid, being a mom, my husband and I, we told our parents on April Fool's Day, I wanted to and had a very uneventful pregnancy up until 20 weeks. At 20 weeks, what people don't tell you is, everyone is so excited about finding out the sex of the baby. If they decide to, no one tells you that it can also be one of the most devastating times if things don't go well. And in my 20-week appointment with my OBGYN, she said, my baby was measuring a few weeks behind, but wasn't too concerned. I'm pretty petite. And so she just chalked it up to that. She said, but let's go make sure I'm going to send you to a high risk specialist. And on June 1st, 2017, my whole world was completely shattered. The maternal fetal medicine doctor or high risk specialist said, I'm so sorry. Your baby has a condition not compatible with life. She would essentially suffocate upon birth, and you all should terminate, heal, and try again in that order. And I was so confused. That same day, I was supposed to have my save the dates for my baby shower to go out and having to tell my best friend and like not wanting to talk, like, you can't send them just so much a day. And like to get that type of news and no mental health support in that moment was so much to take in. And that day, my whole body, my DNA changed.
Well, it's trauma. Like how
Yeah,
you
trauma.
process that. That is like total confusion. Erica, oh my word. I couldn't even fathom to have that news. What is it that helped you to navigate through that?
Yeah. I would say, honestly, at first I didn't think I could survive it.
Was there
Literally,
some denial at all?
there was denial, there was guilt, there was shame. I was mad. There were so many emotions. I remember as a woman of faith, and this is actually was a transformation, like my greatest challenge, but also it was a transformational period for
Mm,
me. And I
yeah.
started to experience life really as a woman, if that makes sense, and coming into my own, not what I was taught. So I really started to find my own spiritual journey, not
Mm.
just based on religion, but
Yes.
really for myself. Yeah.
Mm.
And I remember being so mad at God and being okay with being mad. Like if, being originally from the South and, you don't question God, everything happens for a reason, blah, blah, blah. And then I learned that, it is okay to question. Everybody is different. And it would be foolish if, God made every one of us unique. He
Yeah.
knows that some of his children have a whole different way of needing and being. So I was pissed, quite frankly, for a long time. And when this news happened, I literally could not get out the bed. Like I would wake up and just almost collapse again in the tragedy of it all, the grief of it
The
all.
grief. And I think that we're never taught how to process grief and having that
Everyone is telling
relationship.
you,
Yeah, like having that relationship with God, like you said, none of this is a surprise to him. He already knows what you need. He knows how you're suffering before you even go. It's like it's unconditional love. So
Yeah,
for you to be able to express that whole range of motion is healthy in a way to process grief. And I
exactly.
heard you mentioned in one of our previous conversations how one of your greatest challenges through all of this was also navigating worth. Where does that play in? Share a little bit of.
Yeah, great call out. Yeah, worth. I, for most of my life, being very transparent, I have struggled with validation, affirmation, and always feeling like my best was never good enough. And some of the systems that I've had to operate in, sometimes reinforcing those, or sometimes almost like a horrible abusive relationship. Some days you're great, some days you're not, depending on what it is. And when you talk about worth, think about, just the whole idea, honestly, from just a physiological and divine kind of integration of you're growing this life inside of you, and you already have dreams. I don't care, any woman that's been pregnant, immediately when you find out, regardless of how it happened or whatever, you already have created dreams for this child. And to then, one, I'm telling God I didn't want to be a parent. Then you allow me to get pregnant. I'm like, okay, I'm excited. And then you
Mhm.
decide that it's going to be tragedy. I was like, what are we doing, God? Like, I don't need any more lessons. And so when you talk about worth, I'm thinking, why is it that there has to be something wrong with my child? Why me? Why the thing that, when you want to talk about the rhythm of life's ups and downs, sometimes life has a way of making you face your own music.
Like that's where God meets us. Surrendered at the end of ourselves is what I say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, it made me have to face my own insecurity of being under 5 feet, thinking about the life that my daughter would have. And for your audience, my daughter was actually misdiagnosed initially with a very lethal and rare form of dwarfism. So, being shorter and having different medical challenges. So initially with short rib polydactyly syndrome, which is 99.9% lethal. I think I know one kid that was born but then didn't survive long term, but she was actually diagnosed with another form of dwarfism, less than 300 cases reported in the world, highly concentrated in the Amish Dutch community, and still has a very high mortality rate due to lung and heart complications, including most babies, about 7% have a congenital heart defect. So thinking about all those things and like having to face my own insecurity, the things, the jokes and that people say. Sometimes they're playing. Like I have wonderful friends, but just thinking about the things after a while, how it can be so taxing on you, then you start to question you and your worth, and then
Yeah.
having to like speak life to yourself and say like, I am not my height. I am not my my physical height does not define the person that God called me to be. But
Yeah. Mm,
that was a lot. And thinking about how cruel the world also could be, not wanting my daughter to have to experience that because she looked or will look differently it's been a journey, quite
that's a
frankly.
lot to navigate. One thing that you mentioned, and I want to go back because this is what I discovered is everyone's dirty little secret. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy enough. I don't care who I have worked with, Navy SEAL Special Forces, presidents, CEOs, mid management, like you ask, even young ones. That is everyone's dirty little secret. That is a stinking thinking that we all have in our minds. And just because it's invisible doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And it can absolutely cripple us or give us more purpose when
Yes,
we surround ourselves with the right people.
people.
And
Yes,
so what you talked about, Erica, was, you've got an incredible sense of humor and we do have other people around us. The fact is we all have a very unique walk. Help us to understand for you, what was the defining moment that actually shifted inside to
Mm,
help you find your purpose in all this pain?
that's a really great and loaded question. I'll never forget having the one thing that I couldn't do throughout this journey was call the funeral home. I had asked my husband to do that. I had actually reached out to a national nonprofit, Now Lay Me Down to Sleep, which they will take photos for families for free who are experiencing loss or know they will experience loss of a baby, and I will come to the hospital wherever you are to render some of the most sobering services one could just ever have. And I got Nia's memorial gown, all these things because we had decided. So tell your audience, like we actually, based on the information we initially got, they got a second opinion. We went with the professional opinion initially, and then about 24 hours before the actual procedure, we decided not to terminate. And we really danced in the rain during that time. And so as
Mm.
we fast forwarded towards the end, as I talked about going to like asking my husband to call the funeral home, those type of things, the last 6 weeks of my pregnancy, I remember having this sense of peace around the decision, the finality, the gravity of I will become a mom and then I will be a childless mom.
Pause for a moment. I got the chills from head to toe. When you talked about the peace that you had, Erica, this is one of the things that I think is really important, and I had to learn this the hard way myself because you and I identify type A
Yes.
hyperachiever. It sounds great. There's so many in the audience that are like, yeah, that was me too. I don't have time to do this. I don't have time to do that. This is where I say sometimes God throws us a rumble strip of what's really important. There's signs constantly, but if we're like, fast and
It's
forward
true.
and on a mission and working too fast, we miss those signs. What you just mentioned, and it's where I don't know where I heard this, but I share it all the time, and it's something that syncs with so many people, is you made that choice and you had peace with it. That right there, I want the audience to know is allow peace to be your GPS.
Yeah.
When you have peace, that is the right decision. You got to know that you're in alignment with your creator
Mhm. Yes.
and it's bigger than us. Somebody else has a bigger plan for our lives. Let's face it, everybody, we're not in control. We are
No.
not driving the bus. We might think we are. But then we start on holding on so much control, and then we get our legs cut out from under us because we are not paying attention and we're not partnering with the right people and the right.
Source, right? Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when that piece, if anyone takes anything away from this, and I want your wisdom also,
Sure.
additional wisdom, it's that piece because our logical head can talk us into or out of anything. Feel it in your body and the piece, and you have two choices. You go like this and you're contracting because from what you're saying is like, you didn't want to do this, like, oh, that didn't sit well with you.
Yeah, and I
And
can
then,
tell you the one piece that I didn't say for your audience is whether, you believe in a higher calling, being, etc. What I do know, I have had my share of experiences of, man can't explain it, no one can explain it. And I can tell you, my husband is a dreamer, and I'll never forget asking him, hey, you had a dream? This God told you like what we're supposed to be doing? This is
yeah,
when we were like, coming up, we're in the DMV. So you had the state of Virginia was 22 weeks was the cutoff. Maryland was 24 weeks was the cutoff. And I'll never forget having the conversation of wanting, to have this, very dignified procedure, and I would labor, like all of these things again, because nothing is black and white when you're talking about matters of the heart.
mm,
And that is what I also wanted to share with your audience. I know there is someone out there who might be listening. And I always tell people do not allow religion to fool matters of the heart because it is not simple. No one is signing up to be that person faced with those type of choices. And my husband, when I asked him the question, look, I tell you anything? He's like, no, I ain't been dreaming. He just was like, I'm not even in that space. But that same night, he dreamed the same night I asked him, they just returned from a trip. He had a dream that I was waddling. And keep in mind, 21, 22, I'm not really, you're small, right? First baby, pretty
Yep.
small. And we knew that was our sign that we had carried Nia to term.
Yeah. And when we
So,
pay attention to that, have your connection, which is really important, in addition to wise counsel, is so important.
yes,
Double check it, right? For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
yes,
And then
yes,
now we're in the fight.
yes. We're in the fight of our lives. Woo!
Yeah.
I remember trying to find like, mental health support. I had a great fetal care team. They were just phenomenal, like the geneticist, the genetic counselor, like everyone was really supportive. But after we learned the type of dwarfism he actually had through all of the work and extra research we had to do, going sending things to the special lab. Like, I mean, it was like a whole like ordeal. And one thing I would say is learning that her condition, my daughter's condition, had to be, we learned my husband, one, had it's an autosomal recessive disorder, right?
Mhm.
So that means that my husband and I both have to have it. It did not show. My husband, I should tell your audience, is very tall, over 6 feet. And as I mentioned, I'm under 5 feet. So I just immediately, when you hear the word dwarfism, I just immediately initially assumed, oh, it's me, again, but it's not black and white like that. But that I was thinking. And so when we learned the type that it could be, and my husband he's a known carrier, but nothing comes back on my initial genetic screening. So then they're like, okay, something's off. So then they have to take all like fetal cells, everything, and they ship it. And they learn that I have an unknown mutation on the same gene that causes her type of dwarfism, which is called Ellis Van Creveld syndrome. And they had only seen that unknown mutation in one other case. And that was in November of 2016. I got pregnant in February of 2017.
Yeah.
So that was like, wow, who knew? Meet this guy in college. You just think about like this one.
We're not wearing our medical stuff all over us. And this is a faith walk, right? I mean, this in our lives can be upside down, turned upside down, like you said, is you were a planner, 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 and all of a sudden. So you also
And I had just been promoted, by the way.
the pressure, right?
Yeah.
For sure. Extra pressure to hold it all together. And here's the thing is nobody relates to perfectionism, just saying. And when we're holding it all together and we're dealing with stuff inside and not dealing with it actually, we're shoving
Yeah.
it down to our big toes. We're going to be like a volcano erupting
Literally.
because it shows up in our health. So if
God.
anything, just letting people know, I used to be a master and an expert at shoving it all down to my big toes, but your body will keep score. It will come up. If you are not processing trauma in a healthy way, talking to others, trusted advisors. Yeah. I mean, that
Yeah.
it'll keep score and not in a good way. So thank you for that. One of the
Yeah.
things that we had gone back and forth on, and you had mentioned that you've discovered at the core who you are is a connector and problem solver. Now, did you always know that? Or what helped you put that all together?
When I was in public service, taking the strengths find assessment was life changing for me. We had everybody's done like the Myers Briggs, all of that was like cool, but Strengths Finders, like it spoke to my language. I could
Mhm.
understand it. And I was like, yes, 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 my top 5 things. And seeing Connector as being one of my top 5 was honestly like so transformational for me. Cause I was like, that's it. That's exactly who I am. And it really it's how I move through life now with intention, with understanding that that is a real strength of mind. Like I've been given this body, this life, the way I think, the way I show up, the personality that I have is for a reason. So I better tap into it and I better use it because not everyone has this gift.
Yeah. And one thing to, this is how we got connected as well, is the more talented we are in an area, it comes so easy to us, we take it for granted.
We do.
So when you found that out, the connector, problem solver, how did that factor in to how you show up and how you navigated through? Was that before or after Nia?
For
Okay.
it was before. So I'm one of those people too. People call me Dr. Google. Please don't sue me, Google. Look, because I like retain so much information. And so my friends come to me, like I'm always having things like I call it in my back pocket, in the back of my head and the sides, literally. And
Mhm.
so I just store things. And then eventually one day, shoot, I'll need
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a
it.
natural talent for sure.
Yeah.
Because, and I think that it's part of input as well.
Yeah.
And you're storing that information for because you like to connect
I do.
as well as themes and
Yeah.
how has this worked, and it comes into your problem solving. And so how did that factor in when you were navigating through these challenging times with Nia, sort of seeing how the puzzle pieces all fit in?
That's a great call out because most of the time if I tell people like, I was, former public servant, I was in security, they're like, no way, that seems very like seems cool, but seems dry. They're like, you don't seem like that type of person. And what they miss about me is the connectivity piece,
Mhm.
right? Like putting things together. I'm very non-traditional and in that sense, and because of my training, my background, and also the strengths that I had, I was able to use my my training, my expertise to really save my daughter's life. As we talked about, the journey, or never forget the night before I delivered her via C-section. That was my last high risk appointment. That day it would be. It was also my last fetal cardiology appointment as well. And because I learned at the last high risk appointment, which was after the cardiology appointment, I had no amniotic fluid. So forget her diagnoses, forget all this other stuff. We now don't have any amniotic fluid. And for those who don't know, amniotic fluid is how the baby breathes, especially important during labor. And my doctor was like, you may have a couple pockets, so we need to deliver now. And I was at the hospital that day by myself for the first time ever. I told my husband he could go to work because we had been to the cardiology appointment. Things were like looking up. They had already told us, hope for the best, expect the worst. You may only get a few hours with your daughter, and then she will likely pass away. So again, by this time, we had made peace. Okay, it's what it is. But then you get your world rocked again, right? Like, I'm like, wait, I still got about 3 more weeks. What is happening right now? And
Mm.
I'm in this room by myself. I done told my husband, go to work because these appointments, they've just been kind of run of the mill. By now, I'm like, I got my rhythm. I'm fine. I had just gone to New York like a week and a half ago. Yes, audience, I flew to New York at 35 weeks.
My word. If nobody's going to tell me I can't do that, right?
My
Uh-uh.
doctor told me I could go. It was for work, but I literally laugh at myself. And I never forget my mom saying, "You're doing what?" And I'm like, "My doctor said it was okay." Oh, anyway, thinking about the pieces of like saving her life, getting to her birthday, and everyone is waiting for this limp, blue, cold baby, and the operating room is filled with so many people,
Mm.
and everyone is waiting, waiting. Then they're like, baby's coming, baby's coming, baby's coming, baby's out. And then she screams. And like people are like in tears, people that don't even know us, tears. I can see like some of the
Rocked their
people like
world.
around the room. And I'm like, oh my God, what a miracle. Like everyone experienced a miracle. And I'll never forget it. Like I couldn't even fully cry in that moment because I was so
And what that brings up for me, Erica, is to continue to fight for what you know the truth. especially when you know that you have peace with it and nobody else knows, despite what they're saying, you
Yeah.
have a word. You've got that word. You're going to hold on to that.
Yes.
And that gave you the purpose to continue to move forward. But knowing that there's definitely a greater purpose, not only for you, but for Nia.
Yes.
'Cause and then that alone, when we can have our hope in God, 'cause it's not in anything else, because it certainly wasn't in the doctors, no offense, I've got doctors in my
No.
family too, but they only know so much, right?
Yeah.
And so through all of this, Erica, um, thank you for sharing your story and your purpose. What is one final piece of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
Yeah. Since we, really focused on my motherhood journey, one thing I want to say, I know people like the cliffhanger. My daughter, as you talked about, spent 118 days in two different NICUs. She also coded twice, and one day at 2 months. And the second time it happened, I was picking her up. She was in my arms. And as I think about all of the trauma, the grief, the tragedy I went through, when we talk about living the rhythm, the one thing that keeps coming back to me is the word pivot, pivot
Mhm.
with purpose. And I would just say to your audience, have, if you're even currently, I call it in the valley, and you're not sure which way to really start to take a step back in the moments where, let's say you are upset, you're angry, or whatever your situation is, and really assess the situation and figure out where you can find even just a glimmer of hope or positivity. And I can tell you this as someone who still grieves the pregnancy I didn't have, the motherhood experience I didn't have, the things that it brought to my life professionally. No matter what has kept me grounded is being able to pivot in the midst of the storm
Mm,
for a greater purpose. It's bigger than me and this whole journey. And so for anyone that is like literally probably feeling like you're going through the wilderness right now,
yeah, yeah.
know that if you can just tune in just a little bit to the word pivot, you think about pivot. When you're pivoting, you're turning direction. Think I want to go. What is my new North Star? Because life has happened to me. My North Star may have pivoted a bit. So, how do I shift that and redefine the focus that allows me to not get lost in what is happening to me?
Yeah. Yeah. So good because we can get consumed by it.
Yeah.
And to
Oh,
close the loop with just so you know, okay, right before we came on, Erica said, Nia, she's at camp. She's at camp right now. How old is she?
she is 7.
Bless her heart. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a live wire for sure.
Yeah.
And so bringing you joy, this is the thing too, is if there's a pivot, it's really a rhythm.
It
And
is.
when you look at your North Star and your priorities and it's Nia, everything else is like, okay, well, how can I pivot for the day? How can I take 2 steps over here? Because life is not a race, it's a dance. Yeah.
Dance. I love
So
that. I
so
love
Erica, how can our audience learn more about what you do and your advocacy?
you can follow me on Instagram. My IG handle is at the policy goddess. So ThePolici and goddess GODDESS policy goddess. And also, if you want to learn a bit more about my daughter's journey, you can follow her, which I manage, at Nias NIAS underscore journey. And you can follow her. She will bring you life. When you feel like you're down, you will definitely come up. And also, you can find me as well. I do a lot of work across not only the state of Virginia, but across the nation in maternal health advocacy. And I am a maternal health ambassador for the March of Dimes. And
Mm,
so you can also probably see me. I've been in quite a few of their features, commercials, all the things to raise awareness around the maternal health crisis here in the US. And you may find me somewhere on social media as well, doing a lot of work in the tech policy space, as Pam mentioned earlier. So you're likely to see me in a bit of all things policy, hence the policy goddess. So follow me and also DM me if you have any questions about anything that I shared today.
Has expanded your capacity because when you're actually living your life on purpose, we have capacity to do so much more and reach so many more lives, which is what you're doing in both areas, in all areas of your life, the advocacy, being a
Yes,
mom, in the tech space and everything. I usually
yes,
leave off with a few things for our audience to ponder. So, what if your next pivot isn't a setback at all? That it's actually a path to deeper purpose. The other thing for you to ponder is, where might you be resisting change that's actually calling you forward for another reason? So remember, life is not a race, it's a dance. Find your rhythm and live it. Until next time, thank you.